The 11th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news. Once again, from the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, here is your host, Kathy Wyatt.
It's a sign of the times. For sale posted in yards and on land across the state of Nebraska. That's good news for buyers, but what about sellers? And will this trend continue? Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, the Nebraska real estate market at a glance. Joining us to talk more about it are John Lorkovic, who's a real estate agent with Keller Williams, and Eric Almquist, a loan officer with First National Bank. Welcome to the two of you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us on.
You bet. John, we're going to go ahead and start with you. If you could paint a picture of the overall real estate market in Nebraska.
Well, I don't think it's any secret that times have been a little bit tough in the real estate world. I guess it depends on what side of the fence you're on. If you're a buyer, ready, willing, and able buyer, probably couldn't be a better time. If you have your home for sale, you know, you're on the other side of the fence. But if you look at things as a whole, Nebraska is doing much better than the national average. Different parts of the country where we've seen huge depreciation and some things like that. We haven't seen that, but we have seen a little bit tougher time than what we're accustomed to.
And looking at the state as a whole, are there cities that are in better shape than others?
Well, the Midwest average is that home sales have decreased by about 2.5%, and I think that's pretty common across the state. Areas where, the job centers, where you have a lot of employment, where you have a lot of progression on new businesses coming in and hiring, those type things, have remained fairly strong. The areas that are struggling, it looks like, are the more rural areas where you don't have the influx of jobs coming in and those things.
Okay. Eric, how does the economy overall just factor into this?
Well, I think the economy does factor into the overall equation. You know, you've seen property values come down, you've seen unemployment go up. Overall, how does that affect the economy? Well, it has an impact on it. Exactly what it is, or how you measure that, it's a question for an economist, but it does have an impact on it, and it has. And the credit crunch has made it a little tougher for people to get financing, and so the overall economy kind of contributes to that whole thing.
Okay, and John, there are homes that are doing a little bit better than others right now. What is that magic cutoff seeming to be right now?
What we look for in a real estate market is 3 to 4 months of inventory is a decent market. It's a market that's balanced. Right now we're in a market, different parts of the state, where you may have 10 months, 12 months worth of inventory. And when I say months of inventory, we're talking about the number of homes that have sold in the last year compared to the amount of homes that are currently on the market. So if you're in an area where there's been 1,000 sales in the last year and there are currently 1,000 homes on the market, that's a 12-month inventory. A couple years ago, we were in a market, they call it a seller's market, where you had a month or two worth of inventory. And sellers were getting their price. Everybody was happy except maybe the buyers, who were pretty much having to give very close to list price, or even maybe in some cases above market value to buy particular homes.
Well, let's talk to the buyers and the sellers directly at this point. If I am a seller and I am about to put my home on the market, and I know that this exists and I'm going to have a tougher time, talk to us as a real estate agent or as a typical potential buyer. What can I be doing with my home that I might not have otherwise thought of to make sure that I'm maximizing my potential?
Probably the biggest thing, condition of your home. we have been spoiled as real estate professionals and as the public in general to be able to put homes on the market that maybe weren't in the condition that buyers would have should be buying. A couple years ago, when we were in a great market, you could get away with the green shag carpet in the basement, or the dark paneling, or the overall condition maybe wasn't A plus. You could get by with the C minus and still get a quality price for your home and get it sold relatively quickly. Now, with the number of homes on the market, you need to be priced correctly, and you need to have that home in as good a tip-top shape as you can get it.
Talk to us about those two items you just mentioned. Priced correctly first. Some of this is subjective, obviously, and it depends on your agent, and it depends on what's going on in the neighborhood and all the rest. But talk to us a little bit more about that.
Well, from a price standpoint, to be blunt, it really doesn't matter what your home was worth 2 years ago. The market that we're in right now, you really need to take a strong look at what is on the market right now, what homes are selling for, and price your home according to that. Maybe your home was worth $200,000 a couple years ago. There's a potential that maybe it's worth $185 now, $190. But if you purchased that home 20 years ago, does it really matter? If you know what I mean. The market has changed to a point that some people say, well, geez, I think I have my home priced accordingly to the market. Well, you need to really take a look at what is currently on the market and price your home according to that, and maybe not so much as far as what homes have sold for a year or two ago.
Eric, tell us a little bit about give us a reality check here. If, as John said, I think my home, and of course we all think our home is worth top dollar, but what are you seeing in the way of percentages? What are we seeing across the board here? If a home is supposed to be worth 200, what are we seeing if I'm at 150?
Yeah, well, I think that the upper end of the market is where you've seen the bigger declines. You've got more buyers probably in the 200,000 and below range, and so those houses haven't seen the decline in prices that you've seen probably above that, just because of the amount of people that can afford to buy those types of houses. In the lending industry, we're seeing a little bit more of maybe houses in the upper range actually sold, and every once in a while they don't appraise for what the purchase price is. So you'll see that from time to time. But by and far, I mean, if you're talking a 200,000 or below house, and there's still, I think, plenty of buyers in that price range. You might have to sell it for, people tend to forget that real estate is an asset, and it can go up in value and it can go down just like anything else. And so I think John's right. I think a lot of people have been spoiled in the assumption that real estate prices are always going to trend in the upward direction, and it's just supply and demand. When you have more supply, you're going to see some things change, and I think that's what you've seen happen. I think you just, as a seller, just need to be realistic on how quickly I want to sell my house and where does the price point need to be.
Okay, and John, your second point that you made, tip-top shape. Again, that can be another subjective point to make. And the argument that you may get from people is, look, I've already invested X number of dollars. Where's my guarantee that if I change out the carpet or I paint all the walls, that the house will be more saleable? What are you telling your clients when they come back at you with that?
I think you really need to take a look at your competition. Go out and if your home is priced at $150,000, go out and take a look and take a look at the other homes that are priced in that similar price range. You'll get a pretty quick feel for what you need to do to be competitive with those. Home staging is a huge thing now. That with so many homes on the market, buyers are going to choose what they perceive to be the best condition, the best value, and what you need to do is put your home in the best possible light on both of those. Neutral colors, cleanliness. I guess to kind of use an analogy, if I was to give you $500 and you were to hold on to that for a couple days, and I said, well, shoot, if I was to give you $500 and tell you, you know what, pay me back $1,000 a couple weeks from now, that'd be a pretty good deal for me. That's kind of what you're asking a seller to do. Invest a little bit of money in your home for a big return down the road.
Okay, excellent. Now, so we've covered the seller for now. Now let's go into the buyer. There's obviously a lot of choices out there right now. Can you, as a real estate agent, give us any potential warning signs, red flags? I mean, what is it that we're really looking for to ensure that we're getting the best value for our money?
I think from a buyer standpoint, I always say there are three things that are a must-do for a buyer. One, use a knowledgeable, reputable agent that knows the market, that knows the neighborhoods. Number two, use a knowledgeable, reputable lender, someone that knows the lending market. And the third thing is get a home inspection. Have that home inspected prior to closing on it. If you do those three things, you reduce that risk greatly.
And how is it that an individual goes about finding the best realtor? You know, there are a lot of faces out there that look familiar. People see them no matter what town you're living in. Is that an assurance, or what is it that we're supposed to be looking for to make sure that our real estate agent matches up with us as a family for the particular home that we have?
I think the biggest thing is referrals. Ask your relative, ask your friends, ask your people at work. There are a lot of people that do a great job in this business as agents, and finding them, it's not that difficult. It's a matter of finding people who've had great experiences with agents.
Okay, wonderful. Now, Eric, there are some people who are about to push the panic button out there, who are selling and they can't seem to get the price that they need for their house. And in fact, foreclosures are going up too. Speak to us a little bit about that. What can you tell those folks who are about to enter this realm, or even those who are in it now, who are really at risk of losing what they have there?
Well, I think that lenders in general, I mean, what you're saying is exactly right. I mean, foreclosure rates have been rising nationally and across the state, although in Nebraska, our default ratio is a lot lower than the national level because we haven't seen the appreciation rates that other states have seen. But what you're seeing a lot more of is short sales, where, you know, just exactly what you said. Somebody wants to sell a house and they owe more than what the value of the house is worth. And what I've seen is you've seen lenders, I think, become a lot more willing to work with those types of sellers, you know, where they forgive part of the debt or maybe take out a separate loan so that the seller can sell the house and get out of it. I mean, wouldn't you say?
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
you've seen, I mean, the amount of short sales that I've seen for my buyers, where they're buying a house that's in a short sale, has gone up dramatically in the last, I don't know, in the last year, in the last 8 months. And that's a trend that probably continues a little bit, you know, until everything gets into equilibrium.
And I want to ask, how much did a perceived overextension on adjustable rate mortgages play into what we're seeing now?
Yeah, well, I think it had, obviously it had an impact. I think it didn't have as much of an impact probably in the Midwest as it did on the coast, because realistically what you had happen is you had lenders that weren't going through the normal verification process and lending based on the assumption that housing prices were always going to continue in the upward direction. And so people that probably shouldn't have gotten a loan were put into loans, and those loans in some cases they could make payments that didn't even cover the interest, and so the balance increased and property values came down. And you've seen, that's why you see in California and in a lot of the other states the default ratios are so much higher, because you saw that type of lending happen. It wasn't as prevalent in the Midwest as you saw in different parts of the country.
But isn't that still going on, where it seems like those people who probably, and certainly we're not here to gauge that, people know what their financial status is,
Sure.
But it's still happening, I believe, that people are going in to apply for loans who probably should not be granted that loan, and so we're not really helping them. We're actually hurting the situation.
Sure.
So talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, what you've seen actually in the last 8 months is the credit markets make a do a 180. And 8 months ago or a year ago, those types of financing programs still existed. But there was a statistic that I read just the other day that 99.5% of all the loans done in, I think it was April, actually it's May, were sold to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, and they don't allow that type of lending. So those products, to be honest with you, in today's credit environment don't exist. If I have a client that can't qualify the normal way, and it's even harder to qualify than it was 8 months ago, so the requirements from lenders has become more strict and investors has become more strict. So I don't think you're seeing that. You're still seeing some fallout from people that had got into a loan and their rate is adjusting in the upward direction, or they're having to start make principal payments now because their value has gone down. You're still seeing some of that. But I don't think you're seeing in today's credit environment people that maybe wouldn't have got a loan or would have got a loan a year ago getting those same types of loans. Those programs have pretty much disappeared.
Well, and for those that it does happen to, what happens to those people and what happens to those homes?
In certain cases, I've had several clients that had adjustable rate mortgages where their rate went up substantially, and we were able to do some creative financing and get them into a house and fix the rate, or get them into a new loan and fix the rate so their payments didn't continue to increase. In certain cases, those people, they're going to go into foreclosure, or they're going to go into default, or they're going to have to work with their lender, to get them back on track. You're seeing a lot of investors, again, more willing to work with consumers to lower the amount of foreclosures, fix the rate for another year. You're seeing a lot more of that than you've seen in the past. In the past, the lender would just foreclose, and I think you're seeing different investors work a lot more with their customers.
And that really is a long-term solution. It's not a Band-Aid. It's really more of a long-term solution for those folks. Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk interest rates
Sure.
for a little bit, because I know that's a question that people obviously have a big
I get
interest in.
once in a while.
Yeah, a little bit. Where are we now with interest rates, and where do you think that we're going to be 6 months, a year, a couple of years from now?
Sure. Well, a couple of years from now, it's anybody's guess. Where rates have been, and it's a great question, but it's kind of a subjective question because the credit markets have changed so much that there's so many different things today that affect your interest rate that if a client calls me or comes into me without knowing his credit history and knowing his credit score, without knowing how much he's putting down, I can't give him an accurate rate quote. But if I was giving you a range of rates, on a 30-year fixed rate loan in the last month and a half, probably as low as 6 and as high as 6 5/8 on a 30-year fixed rate note, somewhere in between. Mortgage rates change a little bit every day based on what happens in the bond market, but that's kind of the general range that you've seen rates within.
Okay, and for those people who are not going to be able to go through the whole home ownership route at this point, there is always the option to rent. And in fact, we were talking earlier about houses in neighborhoods that you wouldn't typically think would have signs in the front that say for rent, and we're even seeing that in those housing areas that have homes over $200,000. Is that just something that you think is temporary? Do you think that is something that we're going to continue to see? Talk to a little bit about home ownership versus renting. We'll kind of take this a step at a time, but John, if you want to...
Yeah, I think that's kind of an anomaly. Those upper end rentals are very few and far in between. I don't think it's going to affect the value of the neighborhood or those type things. Someone with an income to be able to afford a rental home in a $250,000 price range, it's not going to affect the neighborhood. I really don't feel. You had brought up the rental market. That's one area that is very strong right now, that people that do have rentals. I have a few rentals. I recently rented one. I was amazed how many phone calls I received on that. Rented it in a very short time to quality people. They're, with the mortgage crisis being a little bit harder for buyers to get loans, it is forcing more people into the rental market, which is great for the people that do have properties for rent.
Okay. Eric, you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, I think the upper end rental market, those may be people that got relocated and the house is vacant and they have a decision to make on, do I continue to try and sell it, or do I want to rent it for a year or 12 months or a year and a half and see if the market comes back some and then try it again. So I think that those, like I said, I don't think there's a tremendous amount of that. I think the rental market is strong in the lower price range. You're seeing a lot more clients, trying to pick up foreclosures and use them as rentals, because it has become more difficult for buyers to get financing. Different programs have gone away. You have to put more money down to get yourself into a house in today's market, which just means that less people are going to be able to buy than what you've seen in the past, and they have to do something, and so they're going to rent. So I think that market is actually pretty strong.
So from a business perspective, then there could actually be folks who are watching who are thinking, maybe it would behoove me to go out and purchase a few of those properties and then use them as rentals.
Absolutely, and we've seen multiple offers on properties, properties that are undervalued for one reason or another, that investors come in. It's a frenzy right now on some of the investment type properties. It is that's probably the strongest part of the market, is that that market under 100,000 that make excellent rentals. That there is, like I said, a little bit of a frenzy in that market right now.
And what are we looking at in the way of monthly payments then for people who are watching, who are thinking, oh, maybe that is the way that I should go? If we're talking a $100,000 home, 150, 200, what are we talking in the way of financial responsibility for these potential renters?
Yeah. Well, I think if you're talking a monthly payment, you mean what they would pay in rent if they were to get
What are they going to
an house.
expect to pay out, correct?
Yeah, probably a little bit. I would guess that that's gone up a little bit. If you had a $100,000 house, I guess if I was throwing out a number, that rent for $900 a month or $950 a month, or maybe $1,000, depending on the condition and where it's at. Is it by schools? How desirable the neighborhood is? But I would say that's a fair number. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. 1% or slightly under.
Yeah.
Okay. Average length of stay, is there such a thing for rental folks who are opting to rent?
Yeah.
We looking at a year or two? Is it typically longer?
There
for
again,
homes?
I think it depends upon the price range.
Okay.
Obviously those renters that are spending $2,000 a month, $3,000, they're going to probably get into home ownership very quickly. The renters that are renting, $300 a month, generally are the people that are living month to month, and things are a little bit tougher for them.
Okay. We've talked quite a bit about existing homes. Let's kind of transition into new home construction now. With everything that's been going on, how has new home construction been impacted? John, we'll start with you.
Well, that segment of the market has been hit pretty hard in the last couple of years. I think we're seeing signs now that the inventory that we had is starting to be reduced, and we're starting to see more housing starts in Nebraska. A year ago, we had quite an oversupply of inventory. Now it's down to a point where we are seeing more and more builders. That inventory has sold off, and so now we're seeing more builders starting new homes.
So it's picking back up again, but in the interim, what were these people doing for employment?
It's been tough. I mean, there have been builders go out of business, subcontractors go out of business. It wouldn't surprise me if some of the foreclosure things were people that were in the business, real estate business, one way or the other. It's been difficult.
And Eric, did you want to add to that?
No, I think he's exactly right, and I think where you've seen also, constriction in less new construction is just lenders are less willing to lend to build a speculative house. In today's market, it's tough to get a lender to say to a builder, oh yeah, I want to go out and I'll build a house as an inventory house and try and sell it. It's a lot tougher in today's market than it has been in the past.
Okay. And as far as potential buyers for these new homes, is there any advice that you can give to, especially that family who's building for the first time? What is it that they should look for? Kind of like we talked about real estate agents earlier. In a builder, how do we know that this is going to be a compatible setup? And is there something that we can be watching along the way as our home is being constructed?
I think the biggest thing is make sure the solvency of that builder is very strong. Just because they've been in business for 20 or 30 years does not mean that they'll be in business the entire 8, 9, 10 months it's going to take to build your home. Ask for references, bank references, different things like that that you could do to protect yourself. But one thing I was going to say from a builder standpoint, we are seeing, and I think it's positive, probably a positive for our industry, that we are seeing a much better product being built out there. That the builders today, because of some of the things that have happened, they've been forced to change their ways a little bit and learn better ways of building and building a product that the buyer wants to buy rather than what they want to build. We're seeing a new breed of builder come about that is more energy conscious. And I think you're going to see, because of a lot of this thing that happened in real estate in the last couple of years, some positives come out of it.
Very good. Eric, any predictions on the future of the housing market?
You know, I don't know if it just depends on who you listen to. Are we at the bottom? Are we close to the bottom? I mean, if you're asking my opinion, I think we're getting close to the bottom. But a lot of it depends on what happens with the economy. You know, do commodities prices keep going up? Does food keep going up? I mean, how much does that impact things down the road? You know, it really depends on what's happened. If I had to place a guess, I think we're getting close to the bottom of the market if we're not there already.
Okay, so things are looking up. John, did you want to add anything to that?
I was just going to say we've seen some trends in the real estate market within the last couple of years. One of the things somewhat surprising is the ownership of homes by single women has doubled in the last 10 years. It's a segment of the market that a lot of the builders are going after, and so that's one thing. I think even statewide, we're seeing builders that are designing their product are knowing that statistic is out there. Something else we're saying, I believe, is personally, with the price of gas prices and those type things, people are staying closer to their jobs.
Okay.
And so that's another trend, that the distance people are commuting to their work is becoming less and less.
Perfect. Okay, and we do have some graphics that we want to put up for folks that will give them more information if they want to log on. The Nebraska Realtors Association, the Nebraska Association of Realtors, and then information for statewide listings. So thank you both very much for joining us today. This was great. And for those of you at home, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours. The 11th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.